Today we're going to check in with one of the OG thinkers on the topic of separation, somebody who put their efforts in early days and really can give us sort of a backgrounder, I think, because you and I keep asking, where did this come from? How is it coming on so quick and so hard, so fast right now?
Right, and this isn't a new thing, so we're going to talk about that today. But it's been something that's been talked about here in Alberta and Quebec, for years. And even when I was a kid, I remember the conversations happening. And now it's coming to fruition for a number of reasons.
Please joining us, Jeevan Mangat, who was one of the original people. I guess there must have been a group of you think tanking this through a number of years, but you've been very active on this front. Thanks for joining us, by the way.
My pleasure, Paul and Mike. It's wonderful to be here and really talking about the independence movement, not the separation, but we call it independence because that's what we're really after, is independence from the federal government, from the liberal damaging policies that are always geared towards Alberta. So, I've been a long time independence supporter, probably, I think, since the early 80s. I didn't get involved until the first time I ran in elections was in 2012 for the Wild Rose Party, which Danielle Smith was a leader.
That's right.
And very smart lady. Loved working for her. And, we finished well behind the winners. And then I ran again in 2015. And Brian Jean, who's the Minister of Energy right now, currently, he was the leader. And so the independence movement, I'll just, if you let me lighten you a little bit of
Please.
How it all developed. So we moved to Canada in 1970. My dad immigrated here in 1969 from Kenya, East Africa. And, I always wonder, why did we leave such a beautiful tropical country to come to -40? So
it's a good question. That's a fair question.
And, well, you know what? Opportunity, safety, tolerance, all of that was in Alberta. And we never left Alberta because the opportunities always existed here. And when I was in high school, really in the mid-70s, I hope my age doesn't show when I say that.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
I can see that.
Yeah. More than one club we belong to, huh? All right.
And really, it started with the Western Canada Concept Party, and they're talking about Western separation because Pierre Trudeau, who got into power in 1968, and just let me remind listeners, since 1963, the Liberal Party has been in power except for two long-serving Conservative Prime Ministers, Stephen Harper and Brian Mulroney. Okay, so the Liberals are to be blamed for what's really happened in Canada over the last 60 years. And it started with Pierre Trudeau. When he got elected in 68, he really wished to centralize power in Ottawa, make it a central government, because that's the culture of really Quebec. And Confederation is not in that manner. Confederation means we're a bunch of provinces tied together in agreements. And the power was not supposed to be in Ottawa. But the Liberal Party under Trudeau wanted to centralize it and gain as much power over provinces as possible. And if you study these statistics, no country in the world has their central bureaucracy as much as Ottawa does. 40% of federal bureaucracy is in Ottawa, not anywhere else in Canada. So when he introduced official bilingualism in 1971, it only gave power to a very small minority. And in my opinion, one of the most damaging policies Canada has is bilingualism. Only 16% of Canadians are bilingual. And outside Quebec, it's less than 3%. We spend $2 billion a year on official bilingualism. In Montreal, where the French language wasn't spoken as much and it was really English, Justin Trudeau came along and said, we need to spend more money. Well, no, the free market is telling you English is the language.
So at that point, is that the first thorn in the paw?
For me, it is, yes.
And for the movement overall, does it all seem to coincide around that same era?
The movement is all. The movement is about, okay, we're contributing about $75 billion in federal taxes and equalization payments to Ottawa. We only get back $26 billion. So we're contributing a net loss of $47 billion, 45 to 47 every single year.
That's the basis
Okay.
on which,
Yeah.
growing up, I had always thought, okay, Alberta wants their own thing.
Yeah. So when you do that for, 60 years, 50, 60 years, there has to be an end result. So when this separation, Western Canada separation, started in, the mid-70s, you had Gordon Kessler getting elected in 1982 in the riding of Olds Disbury, which is just north of Calgary. And then Brian Mulroney gets elected, and the movement kind of dies down a little bit because he says we need a Western diversification program, gives us a little bit of money, but nothing really changes because after, was it 8 years, 9 years, the Conservatives get defeated. John Chrétien comes in. The taxation is just unsurmountable. We get taxed to death. I mean, currently, Canadians contribute 45 to 50% of their income to taxes, which include, you include all taxes: property tax, liquor tax, smoking tax, airport tax, fuel tax. We're just taxed to death. So Albertans realize that we're giving so much, but what are we getting in return? Really nothing. We have no power. Every time we elect the Conservatives in Alberta, we have no voice in Ottawa. We get overruled by the Maritimes, Quebec, and Ontario. So even the Conservatives, when they get into power, they can't do much for Western Canada because the power is in Eastern Canada. And the Senate also. Harper tried to fight for a Triple E Senate. He couldn't do it because the Supreme Court ruled it's a constitutional matter. You have to open up the Constitution. Well, John Chrétien in 1994, I believe, gave veto power to Quebec for any constitutional change, but yet they haven't signed on the Constitution. Well, how did he give veto power to Quebec? Because they changed a little bit of the law. According to the Constitution, you're supposed to have 7 of the 10 provinces that comprise 50% of the population to change any wording in the Constitution. But then John Chrétien introduced a Parliament Act saying that, okay, you need to have BC, Ontario, Quebec, 2 of the 3 Prairie provinces, and the Maritimes. I think it was one province of the Maritimes that comprise 50% to have veto power for any constitutional changes. Well, you could get all the other provinces agreeing, but if Quebec doesn't agree, it's vetoed. That's not fair. Okay. So again, we're mistreated. So bilingualism is one. Here's another one. Supply management. Now, not too many Canadians know about supply management. You ask them.
Certainly showing up on our radar since COVID, right?
Yes. So supply management really was introduced in the mid-60s, and the intent was that we need to safeguard the supply, and we need to safeguard people who are farmers in poultry, dairy, those type of farming. Well, what the end result is, Canadians pay 30% more for dairy and poultry, more than the Americans. Well, now, any other province that needs to apply for a permit so they can produce more eggs or more milk, well, that's not going to happen because then it's all under control. It's centralized. Well, to me, that's socialism. And I can argue all day against socialism because, being from Kenya, Africa, socialism has ruined Africa. There's no open markets. There's no investment. So the end result of supply management is to enrich farmers in Quebec and Ontario, while the net worth of, let me just read this a little bit. The net worth, I had it written down, is that the poultry farms have, if you just give me a minute, I think the poultry farms have about $4 million in net worth, and then the dairy farmers, their net worth is about $5 million. So it's controlled, okay? It's not an open market. Well, my argument is, well, why don't we have supply management for cucumbers? Why don't we have supply management for beef? Why only dairy and poultry? Okay, so here I have the numbers. The dairy farmer's net worth is around 4.5, and the average poultry farmer net worth is around 6 million. It's a very protective industry.
So now, from Alberta's perspective, in modern day terms, we talk about this quite regularly.
Yeah.
The federal government, it's the most resource-rich province in Canada and one of the most resource-rich places on earth. And then the federal government comes in, takes transfer payments, gives very little back, and then puts caps on what can be done environmentally, making oil prices not attractive to the world, limiting oil output, putting ourselves in a tariff scenario. That has to be frustrating for a province that is so dependent on the price of a barrel of oil.
Yes, and so let's analyze that a little bit. Okay, our GDP per capita is the highest in Canada. We're about 74,000. Used to be higher. Used to be 90. But with this introduction of these Justin Trudeau policies to cap everything, environmental laws, we cannot do much. So Albertans want to export their commodities, but we're hampered by these policies. That's another reason the independence movement gets stronger and stronger every day. We can't even change that because we have no voice. We only have 36 MPs, I believe it's 36. And we have no power.
Underrepresented, overmanaged.
Well, here's another example. The Senate. We have 6 senators from Alberta. How many senators come from Nova Scotia? And they only have a population of under 1 million. Just 10. Yeah. Maritimes has a population of about 2 million. They have 30. Alberta has 6, population of 5 million. We contribute the most to the country. Okay.
So I think I understand the history a little bit better now. And it's not so different, Paul, actually, from what I thought. And
No.
I think from what we've always assumed. But here's the questions that remain in my mind, if you don't mind, and you can indulge me on this. Okay, so today in the news, the premiers all get together and Eby says, this amounts to treason. I hate to pull the word out. You certainly had it pretty quickly on hand. This is treasonous. That's the first part of my question. How do you feel about that comment?
Okay, what's the definition of treason?
Defying the laws of a country?
It means overthrowing the government.
Overthrowing the government in an area?
And
Yeah.
Albertans have not done that. They are exercising the law. The law says, according to the Clarity Act, you can have a referendum on independence. We are not overthrowing the government. In fact, I believe, in my opinion, Eby is treasonous because of his support by the Chinese Communist Party, not allowing our resources to be developed. Okay, according to Sam Cooper, I've listened to his podcast a few times, probably the greatest investigative journalist we have in Canada.
Indeed.
And he said Eby was one of the smartest lawyers, politicians he's ever met. And then he got influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, to me, that's treasonous because you're not acting on the best of the interest of your citizens, of the BC residents. Why are you giving a sole contract to the Chinese to build the ferries? That's treasonous. We are exercising what by law we can do. We are not overthrowing the government. We're changing to what we feel is our right. And that's exercising the right to a referendum. And there are laws how you can get to the referendum. And the law says you need 177,000 signatures. And that's what we're doing.
Where are you at the moment?
I have no idea. Our focus just is on getting signatures, getting people in the lineup, and voicing where we can sign, where people can sign the petition. We're totally focused on that. And I, as a volunteer, we're focused on that. The movement wants to get about 1 million signatures. So We've got till May the 2nd to get to that point. And you have to remember, we're doing our signatures according to Elections Alberta, right? Where Thomas Lukasik could just get signatures from wherever, get to a park. We have certain laws we have to follow. So we're under strict guidelines. We're following that, and we're law-abiding citizens. This is what divides us from other countries. We're law-abiding. We have good laws, and we're following those laws.
Jeevan, so help me a little bit. So May comes, and you get the votes.
Yes.
And the independence movement gets the votes, right? You get the votes. What next? So take me through kind of, I just want to, and then how do you see it going? Because that's where I guess a lot of Canada is asking the question, if that's the case, where does it go? And if the independence movement moves forward, how is the structure and how does Alberta fit into Canada? So like, just.
So if we do get the signatures after Elections Alberta verifies everything, yes, that's fine. Then by law, a referendum has to be held, okay? And we only wishing for one question on the referendum. And when that question is presented, people vote on it. And if it passes, okay, then it's incumbent upon the governing party of Alberta to negotiate with the federal government on how we are going to become independent. So, they have to negotiate on the military, whether we say, okay, we'll use the RCMP for a couple of years till we get our own police. The pension fund has to be negotiated on, tax agency, all of that. So that takes time. And suppose, let's say after a year or 2 years of trying to negotiate and it gets nowhere. Okay. The federal government is playing very, very difficult. Well, then my understanding is then if another foreign country recognizes us as an independent state, we can declare to be an independent country. That has happened in Kosovo. Kosovo declared independence from Serbia. Well, the first two countries to recognize them were Japan and Canada. And then the UN recognized them. So that's the path is going to go. That's as far details I know of. Right. The inner details, all of that is, I guess, will be after the referendum has passed, and I'm hoping. Listen, I'm a son of an immigrant. I wasn't born here. I was born in Kenya, but I moved here when I was 12 years old. So I really am a true Albertan because I can see the destruction the Liberal Party has caused to Alberta, and then saying we're Canada. Well, we're not Canada. We're a confederation. We're so many different provinces. We have different cultures. Our culture is different from Quebec. Our culture is different from the Maritimes. It's and I've door knocked thousands of doors, and I met people from Ontario, and they say we'll never move back to Ontario. We love the atmosphere in Alberta. We love the people. We love what's the opportunities that are here. One of the great books I read was I came across, it was $10. It was in chapters before it became Indigo. It was called Alberta Titans. And it was just stories about how people in the early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s came to Alberta from Ontario, from the Maritimes. Because, growing up in Calgary, you see all these great names like, not now, but like CFC and TV, the Calgary Brewery, founders of the Stampede. It just gave you a story how they were able to settle. And really what I came away was that, okay, in the early part of the 1900s, people took risk with their capital and labor to produce a product, offer a service, and they made profits. They hired more people. So Alberta really became the kingdom of free enterprise over the years. And if you examine Western cultures, Western countries, why have they progressed economically so much than other countries? It's just because we allowed free enterprise to go. And I'll give you a great example. India was a closed economy for 70 years. It wasn't until Manmohan Singh was elected as prime minister, I believe in the early 90s, And he had been educated at Harvard and as an economist, and he understood open markets. He slowly started opening up the markets of India, like 1 billion people. Whatever India produces, it gets consumed in India. 1 billion people. So
Right.
uh,
That's a
and-
population
yeah.
thing for sure.
but you need income, right? If you don't have income, you can't buy.
Right.
So that has continued with Prime Minister Modi. He has lowered taxes. He's opened our markets more. India now has become the third largest economy in the world. It's just displaced Japan. So we believe in less central control, and to afford people a greater standard of living, you have to have free markets, because the end result always is you can have socialism, communism. After 50, 60, 70 years, those systems fail and the open market survives.
Jeevan, is there a compromise that would suit Alberta, you think?
No, absolutely not. Nothing will change. You think equalization payments will ever change in the Constitution? Never. Supply management, so many times other countries have tried to say to Canada, you need to get rid of supply management. New Zealand has abolished supply management, I believe it was in 1982. And their exports, right? They export 98% of their milk. It's like $19 billion a year. Australia got rid of their supply management in, I believe it was 2005 or around there. So their exports are like $3 billion a year. Why are we so fearful of abolishing supply management?
Okay, I've abolished it. Do you want to stay in Canada?
That's only one.
Okay.
What about
We have more
equalization?
negotiation to do to keep these
What
guys
about
in.
the Senate?
Yeah.
There's no division of power in Canada. You elect the parliament, the prime minister becomes king, and look at the changes that Pierre Trudeau made, that Justin Trudeau made. So it's not going to change anything, in my opinion.
It's interesting because, I've been coming to Calgary to the Stampede since my early 20s and back and forth. I do notice the difference in the city, for sure. I understand.
And what type of difference do you notice?
Crime, homelessness, I see a lot more of, quite frankly. The state of the city, as far as cleanliness, you're noticing what's going on. And it's funny, friends that I do, when I do visit with friends here that I have here, they're worried about their kids now. I never heard that, right? So the first thing they say to me, even this morning, having a coffee with a friend, and, what are my kids going to do? Right?
So-
What are my kids going to do? Are they going to stay here? Should we be looking at going? That's the conversation now.
I'm glad you brought that up, because when I've campaigned, I asked the question, just imagine if you came to Alberta in the early 1900s. There's nothing here. There's grass, there's some buffalo, there's the Bow River, the Elbow River. How did we achieve this level of prosperity, this level of standard of living? Can you analyze and explain to me how we achieved that? And out of Canada, we are the most prosperous. So how did we achieve it?
Oh, productivity and hard work, right?
Well, that's one way, but I think all of that relates to because we had less regulation, lower taxes, a more open market, so people could take a risk. So, I got this definition of an economy. What's the definition of an economy? The Montreal Economic Institute. I sort of copied their definition, then changed it a little bit. I define economy as either an individual or a group of individuals taking risk with their capital and labor to produce a service or a product for profit. And when you have, thousands of people doing that, you have a great economy.
Right.
Okay.
And Alberta has all of the makings of doing that. More resource, more processing, all of that leading to more employment. From the people that service the rigs to the people that process to the people that manage that supply chain here within the province. More freedom to do that makes a better living for everybody.
Yes, and this is the reason, right? I asked people, okay, 1900s, nothing here. We became prosperous. This is the reason. How do we preserve the system so it's better for our children and grandchildren? Okay, so it's the free market system. And we'll never be able to have that until we escape the claws of the Liberal Party and the powers of Ottawa, okay? And we know that's not going to change. Until we get independence, we're in control. We're trying to make it prosperous for future generation, just as the settlers and pioneers of Alberta did that for us.
It's so wild to us that we show up for the Conservative Convention here in Alberta, and within a matter of a couple of weeks, this is all heated up to the point where there's lineups for people to sign a petition. While the leader of the Conservative Party is trying to hold his position, it's an interesting distraction in town here that kind of illustrates the disappointment that Albertans have with our government. I don't see him taking too much advantage of that. Are you not aligned all that much as a group with the Conservative Party federally, or do you find any alignments out there?
We're not. I certainly am not. I used to be supporting the federal Conservatives, but even they, when they're in power, what have they done? Have they changed supply management? Have they changed equalization? Have they changed nobody wants to address the most difficult decisions, and that's why we elect these people. They want to take the easy route. They want to make their $215,000 a year. Do we need 365 MPs in Canada making $215,000 when effectively they have no power? Their pensions, you serve 15 years, are over $100,000 a year. In the private industry, you work 30 years and your pension is hardly $1,000 a month. So our whole bureaucracy is out of line. The Conservatives can't even do much. In fact, I've told people the Alberta Conservative MPs have no effect. They should become the Bloc Alberta, just like Bloc Québécois.
We've
right?
had that discussion.
So why don't they do that?
Well, listen, the other opinion I think people have out there is, oh, Danielle Smith's dragging Alberta down to is aligned with this independence movement.
Correct.
And really what she's going to do is just hand it off to the U.S. and it's going to become a part of the U.S. It won't be independent at all.
Well, you know what? Those words are so easily said because it's fear-mongering, okay? We do not wish to become under another federal government. We're escaping one. Why would we choose to have become another province or another state under another federal government, especially when you could have, the Democratic Party with, maybe Gavin Newsom as the president. So when he's down to California, do we wish that happened to Alberta? No way. We wish to become people of our own decision-making. And that's just fear-mongering. Easy to say that you become the 51st state. When you cannot argue logically, you cannot argue with the stats that I presented, with the policies that I presented, you are going to just throw out vile words. You're going to throw out false narrative because that's all you have.
I don't think that I have any surprises in this discussion, to be honest with you, Paul, because in being here over the last year, you feel this. You feel this at least from a portion of the population of Alberta that this is boiling under. I have one last question. Profile for me an independence supporter in Alberta. Who are these people?
That's me. I've been to about 9 town halls during the last year, and where the independence movement has presented all these stats, and there's some horrendous stats that would make your mind boggle. Alberta lost Canada lost $500 billion worth of investment when Justin Trudeau introduced all those policies, okay? So the average independence supporter is looking at all this, right? They're just like me. I go to these small towns, talk to people, small towns that are like 400 people. I'll tell you one story. I went to Cremona, which is a beautiful village on the west side of Calgary. I think it's northwest. And the population is 400 people, okay? And, well, how many people showed up to the town hall? Like 350.
Wow, it's that important.
It's very important. And people are, these people are born in Alberta, raised in Alberta. They've never liked the Liberal Party. this movement comes along after 50 years. Okay, this is not something new. This has been festering in Alberta since the mid 70s. Finally, this movement comes along, is able to educate everybody, gather some stats, and it just started in small towns, and slowly it grew. Every movement you can study grows from one or two people, and it takes 50, 60 years. You can study the NAACP, the civil rights movement, right? Started in the early 1900s. NAACP was, I think, created in the early 1900s. It took them 50, 60 years to get the Civil Rights Act.
It really is a matter of
Right?
perseverance, isn't it?
It
Many of
is.
these things.
And it's usually a small population, right? It's like usually 7 to 13% of the population start, and then from there people join on. And that's what caught our attention, honestly, for this trip and coming out and meeting you and others, is the fact that this is exponentially growing now at a rate, and you can feel it, right? You can see it.
That's a movement, right?
That's
With
a movement.
momentum.
Yes.
And you can look at other movements around the world too. Independent countries that were under British colony, slowly it developed, and it becomes a greater movement at the very end. And people think it happened overnight,
Yes.
but no, it's been here for 50 years.
It feels like that right now. We've noted that in the last few weeks. It's really hit sort of a peak in discussion.
And I think it's because people's emotions have been locked up for so long, they didn't know what to do until they say, oh, well, you can vote for a referendum. Okay. And thank you to our Premier Daniel Smith, who introduced, I think, Bill 14, and this became that you need 177,000. There's a way to do it. Yes, we're following the law. This is how it's done. We're not treasonous. We are dedicated to the province of Alberta.
And just a couple things, and some of the things, representation, I understand, and I understand why that Senate House, how that annoys you, but a lot of the other things, quite frankly, I am hearing everywhere in Canada right now. So whether it be supply management, whether it be what are my children going to do, those are very common, right? So as we go across Canada, we do feel that. Crime, all those things. We're seeing all of them. So there are commonalities that we all have. And productivity. Like that has been the, Ontario, for example, quite frankly, that's been our Achilles heel in the last 10 years, right? It's just our productivity per capita has gone second.
It's one of the worst in the industrialized nations.
Second last in the developed countries out of 38, right? And
We make nothing.
We've kind of eroded. And it's a shame because that's not who we were as Canadians. So I feel the pain on those fronts.
Yeah.
I'm with Mike. I know confidence in finding a solution is dwindled, but I still do feel that the commonality in all those things across Canada, if they could actually be fixed or addressed, and then the representation piece to me is just sitting down and figuring that out for representation based on participation in the economy.
Well, I think achieving Alberta independence would really help the rest of Canada because, like I said, people only change when times are difficult, when something drastic changes in their life. And this will be a drastic change. They will have to become creative. The end result of equalization payments is like 25% of Nova Scotia's budget is equalization payments. Yeah. If there was no equalization payments, okay, that would have forced the Maritimes to become creative. Maybe it's a tourism industry there would have just expanded, okay? It would have forced Quebec to become more creative, seek more trade. The income, the revenue from Hydro-Quebec is not in the equalization payments. How is that fair?
That's unfair.
Will that ever change? No. Like I said,
that's correct.
Alberta independence will be better for the rest of Canada. It will force them to think.
It's an interesting perspective. I will tell you this, as a multi-generational Canadian, I would hate to lose Alberta. I think that all of Canada would. And if you did a petition to keep Alberta in, I'd be curious to see what the response from Canadians was, because that petition might be part of the solution to say, look, Albertans need a better deal or we're going to lose them.
And then how do you guarantee 40 years from now another Liberal may not come along and say, you know what, we're going to put a tax on export oil. We're going to say those pipelines have to be shut down. There's no guarantee. And it's happened, right? It's happened all the
I
time.
was going to say, if there's already evidence that this has
happened
occurred,
all
it's
the
hard
time.
to not
Like I said,
see it on the horizon.
Nothing will change in this country. Nothing. People are too comfortable. We have $1 trillion in debt. I mean, if we're giving $45 billion every year to Ottawa, why do we have $1 trillion in debt? And why does Alberta have $100 billion in debt? Where has that money gone?
Jeevan, thank you so much for trying to get this through to us. And by the way, with great logic and great kindness. So I do appreciate it. There was no shouting over this,
No.
just some logical moments that we all need to consider as Canadians. When you wonder why Alberta wants to separate, you've just heard a bunch of great reasons. Can people find out more through you, or where do you recommend Canadians on the whole and Albertans take a look at this?
Well, if they simply Google Alberta independence, the page for, I believe, Stay Free Alberta will show up, and that's one of the sites they can look at. Twitter is very good. The Rise of Alberta is on there. And you know what? I recommend people who want to study Alberta independence, read this book. I've bought a bunch of books. This book is really good. And every chapter is by a different author. So Dr. Barry Cooper has written a chapter.
No, wow.
The moment of
Ted,
truth.
Ted Morton has written a chapter. Preston Menning has written a chapter. Jack Mintz has written a chapter. And one of the great authors of Alberta has been Dr. Michael Wagner, who has written 3 books. This is one of the books, No Other Option. There's Alberta Separation Now and Then was his first one. Gives you a history. Really good book to read. Corey Morgan has written a book. He's a great journalist based in Calgary.
Great writer, yeah.
Great writer. I love listening to him. Then we have Colin McLeod, a transplant from Africa, like I am, from Kenya. Strong, independence-minded, great author, great person. And somebody I would also recommend reading Janice McKenna's book. I don't know if they can see this. Where's the camera? Okay.
To that camera there, yeah.
This is a great book that I read. It's called Minding the Public Purse. She was an NDP, finance minister in the NDP government, where Saskatchewan was going bankrupt. How do you address that? She closed down 52 hospitals because they were in small towns like 700 people. Governments get in power. These MLAs, MPs get in power. They take the easy route. We'll build a hospital, keep people appeased. We don't care about the debt. Let it build up. The future generations, the future elected officials can look after it. We'll get our 100,000, 200,000 a year, and we'll get a pension, and we're out. Well, that's the end. Janice McKinnon had to make some really difficult decisions, and she made them. Boy, do I have respect for her. And they were able to get out of that debt.
Will an independent Alberta be a democracy?
It certainly will be. And, we need division of power. Like the U.S. has a good system. There's division of power. The power is not just held by one person. There's the House, then there's the Senate. They devised a great system. I mean, I give a lot of credit to the founding fathers who sat and figured out 250 years ago, can we, like the king, can we just give one person the power? They knew that would be trouble. How do we divide the power of the country? I think their system is working great because there's control. And, time to time, it may not be perfect. No system is. But I'll tell you, it's better than what we have because we elect a majority. So Justin Trudeau got in with like a 33% popular vote. And I like the two-party system because you get in with more than 50% of the vote. So you got 50% of the electors that voted for you. You're in power. I want to do what's right for Albertans in Alberta. I'm not here to get reelected. Okay, you're in there for 4 years, 5 years, whatever. Let's make decision what's right for Alberta. If you paid me 0 salary, I'd still be doing it, right? Unfortunately, I didn't get elected, but that's always my dream, right? Do it for the citizens you're representing. Make those tough decisions. We have to balance the budget. We don't have money all the time to do this project or that project, okay? Because that debt people think somehow it'll be taking care of itself. It will crush you like it did to Argentina. Argentina was one of the richest countries in the 1900s. When Juan Perón got elected, I believe in 1952 or 53, that country has been downhill. They've gone bankrupt about 8-9 times. Their peso has been devalued. After 70 years, like I said before, you can have socialism, communism, the free markets take over. Milei gets elected, he just knocks out 8 ministries right away because they can't afford it. 4 out of 10 Argentinians live in poverty because 70 years of socialism has done that. So, it's wonderful to talk about, we should all be equal. We should all have equal opportunities, right? But we're all different. We all have different talents. We have different thoughts. We have different intelligence. And the only way I can see everybody working together is through the free markets, because that gives an opportunity to people to exercise their freedom.
Thanks for talking to us about this. It's a tough topic.
Maybe I talk too much.
No, I would love, I think that we should continue to talk about it, and I would love to. And as we get closer to the deadline on this, it'd be nice to reconnect with you and just get a feeling for what's happening here and what you think will happen. But understanding it from the beginning to this point is super helpful. Thank you so much, Jeevan.
Well, it was a pleasure, and I really appreciate that you invited me here to speak, because I'm very passionate about it, right? And I just talk out of pure passion, pure thought, because I can see what's happened and I can see what's coming.
We see you looking out for your fellow Albertan, that's for sure.
Thank you very much. It was
Thank
a real
you so
pleasure.
much. What a pleasure to meet.
Mike.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget, subscribe, hit the notification button. What am I forgetting? Oh,
Download the app.
download the app. Yep, you'll find that on the Apple Store and for Android. And we would love you to visit tplmedia.ca for more great content just like this and more conversations that we want you to participate in. Thanks. See you next time.